In the heart of Chihuahua, Mexico, nestled among the bustling streets and vibrant shops, stands a small boutique that has captured the imaginations of locals and visitors alike. Its name is unimportant. What draws people in is the figure standing silently in the shop window. Dressed in a pristine wedding gown, her eyes seem to gaze beyond the glass as if she's waiting for someone or something. Her name? La Pascualita. At first glance, she appears to be a mere mannequin, a simple display meant to showcase the shop's finest bridal attire. But step closer and the illusion starts to crack. Her skin isn't smooth plastic, it's textured, almost lifelike. Her fingernails are meticulously detailed, complete with faint ridges, and beneath her glassy eyes, veins seem to run beneath the surface. It's not long before the hairs on your neck stand on end. This is no ordinary mannequin, or so the whispers claim. Many believe La Pascualita is the embalmed corpse of the shop owner's daughter, frozen in time after a tragic end. Before we dive deeper into this eerie tale, I have a quick favor to ask. If you love stories that send chills down your spine and make you question the line between the living and the dead, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these haunting stories alive, and trust me, you won't want to miss the next one. Now let's return to La Pascualita. The legend begins in the 1930s, when the mannequin first appeared in the shop window. It was an instant sensation, not because of her beauty, though she was undeniably striking, but because of the uncanny resemblance she bore to the shop's former owner, Pascuala Esparza. According to local lore, Pascuala's daughter had been set to marry the love of her life. The wedding preparations were in full swing, and the young bride-to-be was the very picture of joy, glowing with excitement. But fate had other plans. Just days before the ceremony, tragedy struck. Accounts vary. Some say it was a venomous spider bite, while others claim a sudden illness took her life. Whatever the cause, the young woman's dreams of walking down the aisle were cruelly snatched away. Overwhelmed with grief, her mother, Pascuala, was said to have withdrawn from the world. The shop remained closed for weeks, its windows dark and empty. When it reopened, the mannequin was there. She wore a wedding dress, a gown that some say had been intended for Pascuala's daughter. Her presence was unsettling. Customers whispered about her lifelike features, the haunting familiarity in her face. Whispers turned into rumors, and rumors evolved into a chilling belief. Pascuala had embalmed her daughter's body and placed it in the window as a tribute to her lost child. Over the years, the legend of La Pascualita grew. Locals claimed to see her eyes follow them as they passed by the shop. Some said her hands would shift positions overnight, her fingers curling as if reaching for someone. Others swore they'd seen her lips part, as if on the verge of speaking. Whether these stories are figments of overactive imaginations or evidence of something truly paranormal, one thing is certain. La Pascualita has become an enduring mystery. For nearly a century she has stood in that window, her identity shrouded in speculation. Is she merely an expertly crafted mannequin, or is she something far more macabre? The shop's owners have never confirmed or denied the story, choosing instead to let the legend persist. Tourists flock to the boutique, snapping photos and hoping to catch a glimpse of something inexplicable. Some come out laughing, dismissing the tale as a clever marketing ploy. Others leave pale and shaken, unable to shake the feeling that they've just encountered something alive. And so, the tale of La Pascualita lives on, passed down from generation to generation, a chilling reminder of the fine line between life and death. What do you think? Could such a story hold a kernel of truth? Or is it just another ghostly yarn spun to delight and terrify? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you've ever visited Chihuahua, I'd love to hear about your experience. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll explore the eerie accounts of those who claim to have felt La Pascualita's presence, or even seen her move. The story of La Pascualita becomes even more chilling when we step back in time to uncover her origins. Her tale begins with joy, hope, and the promise of a new life. A promise that was tragically shattered in a way that would haunt a family and an entire city for generations. Pascualita Esparza was known throughout Chihuahua for her beauty. With long dark hair that cascaded down her back and eyes that sparkled like sunlight on water, she seemed destined for a life of happiness. But what made her truly captivating was not her outward appearance but the warmth of her spirit. She was kind-hearted, quick to laugh, and deeply loved by all who knew her. Her mother, Pascuala, adored her and took great pride in watching her daughter's star rise. When Pascualita announced her engagement to a young man from a respected family, the entire town buzzed with excitement. The couple's love was the kind that seemed almost too perfect, like something out of a fairy tale. The wedding date was set and preparations began in earnest. Pascualita's dress was a masterpiece, a vision of white lace and silk that seemed to capture her radiance. It was displayed in the family's bridal shop, a beacon of the joy to come. But as the wedding day approached, an ominous shadow began to creep over the celebrations. On the eve of the ceremony, Pascualita fell ill. It started as a slight fever, one that many brushed off as wedding nerves. Yet, by the next morning, her condition had worsened dramatically. Some say it was a spider bite, a venomous recluse hidden in the folds of her gown. Others believe it was a sudden and aggressive illness, striking her down without warning. Whatever the cause, Pascualita's vibrant spirit faded before her loved one's eyes. Pascuala's grief was unimaginable. In mere hours, she had lost not only her daughter but the dreams of seeing her walk down the aisle, her face alight with joy. The white dress that was meant to symbolize a new beginning became a shroud for a life cut tragically short. The wedding day turned into a funeral, and the bridal shop closed its doors, its windows veiled in black. For weeks, the Esparza home was silent, save for the soft echoes of mourning. Pascuala refused to leave her room, clutching her daughter's wedding dress as if it were the last thread connecting her to Pascualita. Friends and family worried for her health, but she dismissed their concerns. She could not, let go of her daughter's memory. Then one day the bridal shop reopened. In the window stood a mannequin unlike any other. She was dressed in Pascualita's gown, her pose elegant yet haunting. But what struck onlookers most was her face. It was as if Pascualita herself had returned, her features captured in astonishing detail. Her expression was serene, almost lifelike, her hands so finely crafted that they appeared ready to reach out. The rumors began almost immediately. Some claimed Pascuala had hired an artist to immortalize her daughter. Others whispered a darker theory, that Pascuala had been unable to part with her child and had preserved Pascualita's body, dressing it in the wedding gown she never got to wear. The shopkeeper neither confirmed nor denied the stories, allowing the legend to grow unchecked. As weeks turned into months, visitors to the shop reported strange occurrences. They spoke of feeling watched as they browsed the dresses, of icy chills brushing past them despite the warm Mexican sun. Some swore they saw La Pascualita's chest rise and fall, as if she were breathing. Others noticed her hands shifting positions when no one was looking. The mannequin, it seemed, had a life of her own. For Pascuala, La Pascualita became a way to keep her daughter's memory alive, a silent guardian watching over the shop. But for those who dared to visit, she was a reminder of life's fragility and the thin veil separating the living from the dead. The origins of La Pascualita are rooted in love and loss, but they leave us with an unsettling question. How far would you go to preserve the memory of someone you couldn't bear to lose? The tragedy of Pascualita's wedding day lingers in the air of that small boutique, woven into the fabric of the legend that refuses to fade. Her story isn't just one of heartbreak but of a mother's desperate attempt to defy the finality of death. And so, La Pascualita remains, her presence a ghostly echo of a day that was never meant to end in sorrow. Not long after Pascualita's tragic death, the bridal shop reopened its doors. The once darkened windows, draped in mourning, were now clear, and in the center of the display stood something that made the people of Chihuahua stop in their tracks. It wasn't just the wedding gown, though its intricate lace and shimmering pearls still carried an aura of sorrow. No, it was the mannequin. Or was it? She stood there, motionless but radiating an eerie presence that seemed to demand attention. Her face, framed by cascading black hair, bore an uncanny resemblance to the late Pascualita. The townspeople whispered among themselves as they stared, unsure if what they were seeing was a mere coincidence or something far more unsettling. The mannequin's features were impossibly lifelike. Her eyes, made of glass, seemed to glimmer as though they held secrets no one could unlock. They weren't the vacant, soulless eyes of a typical mannequin. These seemed to follow you, tracking your movements as you walked past the window. Her lips, painted a soft pink, were slightly parted as if frozen mid-sentence. But it was her skin that drew the most attention. Unlike the smooth plastic or porcelain of other mannequins, hers appeared textured, almost human. Beneath the faint sheen, veins seemed to thread beneath the surface, hinting at the warmth and life that should no longer exist. Her hands were particularly haunting. They weren't stiff or unnatural but delicately poised, as if she were about to adjust the folds of her gown. Upon closer inspection, one could see the faint ridges of her fingernails, the subtle curvature that no artisan could replicate so perfectly. Even her knuckles bore slight creases as though they had once bent and flexed. To the daring few who leaned closer to the glass, a chill ran down their spines when they noticed what appeared to be fine hairs along her arms. It was impossible, or at least it should have been. The arrival of the mannequin sparked immediate rumors. Some believed she was a masterwork, a testament to an artist's ability to blur the line between reality and art. But others, particularly those who had known Pascualita in life, weren't so convinced. The resemblance was too striking, too precise. It wasn't just her face or her hands, it was her aura, the inexplicable sense that Pascualita was still present, somehow, within the confines of that shop window. The whispers grew louder. "It's her," some said. Pascuala couldn't bear to part with her daughter, so she preserved her. They spoke in hushed tones of embalming, of forbidden practices, of a grief so profound that it blurred the lines of sanity. Yet, when confronted with these rumors, Pascuala Esparza offered no confirmation or denial. She simply smiled, her eyes betraying nothing. "She's a mannequin, nothing more," Pascuala would say when pressed. But her words failed to convince those who had gazed into the mannequin's eyes and felt the unshakable certainty that someone, not something, was staring back. As days turned into weeks, the mannequin's reputation grew. People traveled from nearby towns to see her, drawn by equal parts curiosity and dread. Some came to marvel at the artistry, while others came to test their courage. Stories began to circulate. A woman claimed she saw the mannequin's fingers twitch as she walked by. A child swore he heard a soft sigh emanating from the display. A man passing late at night insisted he saw her head turn ever so slightly to follow him as he hurried past the shop. Inside the boutique, the shopkeepers treated the mannequin with an almost reverential care. They spoke of her as though she were alive, apologizing softly if they brushed against her while rearranging the display. One assistant, newly hired and skeptical of the tales, claimed to have touched the mannequin's hand and felt a faint warmth, as though life still lingered within her. The arrival of the mannequin transformed the shop from a simple bridal boutique into a local legend. People no longer came just to buy wedding dresses. They came to glimpse the uncanny figure in the window. La Pascualita, as she became known, wasn't merely a mannequin. She was a mystery, a guardian, a ghost, depending on who you asked. And for those who stood before her, staring into her lifelike eyes, one question lingered: what if she's more than just a mannequin? As La Pascualita's presence grew in the bridal shop, so too did the rumors that swirled around her. It was impossible to walk through Chihuahua without hearing her name spoken in hushed tones, accompanied by furtive glances. For some, she was a mere curiosity. For others, she was something far more sinister or sacred. The first whispers were tentative, almost dismissive. A passing customer claimed to have felt the mannequin's eyes on them, following their every move as they browsed the shop's elegant gowns. At first, these accounts were chalked up to overactive imaginations. After all, how could a mannequin, no matter how lifelike, actually see? But the stories didn't stop. In fact, they became more frequent and more unsettling. A young bride-to-be, while standing in front of La Pascualita's display, swore she saw the mannequin's lips curl into the faintest of smiles. An elderly woman reported seeing her hand shift position overnight, from gracefully resting on her gown to pointing slightly toward the door. And then there were those who insisted that they'd seen her blink. "It's not natural," murmured a shop assistant who resigned after a month of working near the mannequin. "Sometimes I felt like I wasn't alone even when the store was empty. Like she was watching me, waiting." For those brave enough to stay in the shop after dark, the tales grew even stranger. One worker claimed that the sound of faint footsteps echoed through the boutique, though no one else was present. Another recounted seeing La Pascualita's reflection in a mirror turn to face them, even though the mannequin itself had not moved. The locals were divided in their opinions. Some saw La Pascualita as a figure of terror, a lingering spirit tethered to the earthly realm by grief and longing. "She's cursed," one man declared. "It's not right for the dead to stay among the living. That mannequin, it's unnatural." Superstitious townsfolk avoided the shop entirely, believing that even a glance into her lifelike eyes could bring misfortune. Yet others viewed her in a completely different light. For them, La Pascualita wasn't a symbol of fear but of protection. They whispered that Pascualita's spirit, if truly inhabiting the mannequin, watched over brides-to-be, ensuring their happiness and shielding them from harm. Some brides made a point of visiting the shop not just to admire the gowns but to stand before La Pascualita and offer a silent prayer for her blessing. "She's a guardian," said a young woman who had purchased her wedding dress from the boutique. "I felt her presence as I tried on my gown. It was comforting, like she was telling me everything would be okay." The woman's wedding, by all accounts, went off without a hitch, fueling further belief in La Pascualita's benevolence. Word of La Pascualita's supposed power spread beyond Chihuahua, drawing visitors from neighboring towns and even distant cities. People came to the shop not just to buy dresses but to leave offerings: flowers, candles, and handwritten notes filled with hopes and fears. The shop became a strange mix of boutique and shrine, with La Pascualita as its silent centerpiece. Even skeptics found themselves unnerved when standing in her presence. They would approach with bravado, intent on proving that the stories were nothing more than local superstition. Yet, many left with shaken resolve, unable to explain the way the mannequin's eyes seemed to bore into their very souls. "It's just a trick of the light," one man muttered as he hurried away, refusing to look back. The most devoted believers, however, insisted that La Pascualita's movements and expressions were signs of her lingering love for life and her desire to connect with the world she had left behind. "She's not evil," one elderly woman said. "She's just sad. Her story ended too soon, and now she's still here watching over us." Whether seen as a protector, a curse, or simply an enigma, one thing was certain: La Pascualita had become far more than a mannequin. She was a legend, a mystery, and for some, a reminder of the thin line between the living and the dead. And as the rumors continued to swirl, her lifelike gaze remained fixed on the world outside the bridal shop, unblinking and eternal. As the years went by, the bridal shop housing La Pascualita became a focal point not only for brides but also for those drawn by the uncanny and the unexplained. While the mannequin herself remained stoic and motionless during the day, it was the nights and quiet moments that birthed the most unsettling tales. One former employee, a seamstress named Marisol, recalled her first late shift in vivid detail. "It was after closing," she began, her voice trembling even years later. "I was finishing alterations in the back when the lights started flickering. At first, I thought it was just an electrical issue. The building is old, after all. But then I heard it. Faint footsteps, slow and deliberate, as if someone was pacing near the display window." Marisol summoned the courage to peek into the front of the shop, only to find it empty. Yet, as she turned to leave, she could have sworn La Pascualita's head had shifted slightly, her glassy eyes now fixed directly on her. "I convinced myself it was my imagination," Marisol admitted, "but I never worked a late shift alone again." Another story came from a young bride who visited the shop with her mother. As she tried on gowns, she noticed La Pascualita through the mirror. "Her reflection caught my eye," the bride recounted. "I thought I saw her hand move just a little. I laughed it off at first, but then, when I turned to look directly at her, I could have sworn her fingers had shifted position. It was so subtle, but it was enough to make me uneasy." Over time, these experiences became almost routine for those who worked at or visited the shop. One assistant, who stayed on despite her unease, described a peculiar sensation whenever she walked past the mannequin. "It felt like someone was standing too close," she said. "You know that feeling when you can sense someone behind you? That's how it felt every time." The stories didn't stop at feelings and fleeting glimpses. Some customers reported hearing whispers, faint and indecipherable, seemingly coming from nowhere. One bride claimed that as she stood admiring her chosen gown in the mirror, she heard a soft sigh behind her. Turning quickly, she found no one there, just La Pascualita, standing in her usual spot, her gaze unwavering. Then there was the tale of a delivery driver who arrived after hours to drop off a shipment. As he unloaded boxes near the display window, he glanced inside and froze. "I swear she smiled at me," he said. "It wasn't a big smile, just a little curve of her lips, but it was enough. I left the boxes right there on the sidewalk and drove off." One of the most chilling accounts came from a janitor hired to clean the shop overnight. He had no prior knowledge of La Pascualita's legend, brushing off the mannequin as just another display piece. But after his first shift, he refused to return. "I was mopping near the front," he explained, "when I felt this intense pressure, like someone was watching me. I looked up and for a split second I thought I saw her blink. I dropped the mop and ran." Even the shop's owner, though reluctant to entertain the rumors publicly, couldn't entirely dismiss them. On one occasion, a group of visitors asked to take photos of La Pascualita. As they posed near the display, one of their cameras captured something unusual: a faint shadow that seemed to hover near the mannequin, resembling a figure in a wedding veil. The photo quickly became the talk of the town, fueling speculation that Pascualita's spirit truly lingered. Despite these strange occurrences, the shop staff developed a kind of uneasy acceptance. They spoke to La Pascualita as they would a colleague, greeting her in the morning and bidding her good night at closing. Some even claimed that this ritual seemed to keep the more unsettling events at bay. "It's like she's part of the team," one employee joked nervously. "We respect her and she respects us." For visitors, these tales only added to La Pascualita's allure. Whether driven by curiosity, fear, or the hope of witnessing something extraordinary, they continued to flock to the shop. And as they stood before the mannequin, gazing into her lifelike eyes, many left with the same lingering question. Was it all just stories, or was there something truly otherworldly about La Pascualita? Over the decades, La Pascualita has become an enduring enigma. Standing silently in the shop window, dressed in elegant wedding gowns that change with the seasons, she remains a constant figure in Chihuahua's ever-changing landscape. Yet, despite the years of rumors, chilling accounts, and countless questions, the shop's owners have steadfastly refused to confirm or deny the macabre claims surrounding her. When asked directly about La Pascualita, current and past shopkeepers have offered only cryptic responses. Some deflect with humor, claiming she is merely a finely crafted mannequin with a unique charm. Others avoid the topic entirely, steering conversations back to the shop's collection of bridal dresses. But their reluctance to engage with the story has done little to quell the speculation. If anything, it has only added fuel to the fire. "People want to believe what they want to believe," said one former employee in an interview. "But honestly, even we don't know the whole truth. All I can say is that there's something about her that you just can't explain." La Pascualita's physical appearance, unchanged for decades, continues to draw scrutiny. Her lifelike features, the delicate veins on her hands, the faint blush on her cheeks, the glassy eyes that seem almost too real, have convinced many that she is not just a mannequin but something more. Experts in mannequin craftsmanship have visited the shop, some claiming her construction is far too advanced for her supposed era. Others suggest that her meticulous upkeep points to an extraordinary level of care, almost as if someone were preserving her for reasons beyond mere display. The ongoing mystery has turned La Pascualita into a local legend and a global curiosity. Tourists flock to the shop from far and wide, hoping to catch a glimpse of her and perhaps experience something inexplicable. Many come armed with cameras, snapping photos that they later scrutinize for signs of movement or other anomalies. Some claim to capture subtle shifts in her posture or the faintest hint of a smile that wasn't there before. Local tour guides have embraced the tale, weaving it into their narratives of Chihuahua's rich history. "She's more than just a mannequin," one guide explained to a group of visitors. "She's a symbol of love, loss, and the mysteries we may never fully understand." For believers, La Pascualita is more than an eerie attraction. She's a figure of intrigue, a possible bridge between the living and the dead. Many leave offerings at the shop, from flowers and candles to handwritten notes seeking her blessing. Some brides-to-be whisper their hopes and fears to her, believing that her presence will bring good fortune to their marriages. Others visit out of pure fascination, eager to stand in the presence of a legend. Yet, skeptics remain unconvinced. "It's just a mannequin," they argue. All these stories are the result of overactive imaginations and clever marketing. They point out that no definitive evidence has ever proven the claims about La Pascualita, and the shop's owner's silence only serves to keep the myth alive for publicity's sake. But even the skeptics can't deny the strange energy that surrounds her. Many who visit the shop leave with an uneasy feeling as though they've been watched. Others describe an inexplicable pull, a sense that there's something more to La Pascualita than meets the eye. It's this duality, the tension between belief and doubt, that keeps her legend alive. As the years pass, the fascination with La Pascualita shows no signs of fading. She remains a fixture in Chihuahua, a silent witness to generations of visitors who come seeking answers and leave with even more questions. Whether she is truly the embalmed body of the shop owner's daughter or simply an extraordinarily lifelike mannequin, one thing is certain: La Pascualita's story continues to captivate all who encounter her. Perhaps that's the greatest mystery of all. In an age of answers and explanations, La Pascualita endures as a reminder that some stories are meant to remain unsolved. And as she stands there, unchanging in her bridal finery, she seems to watch the world with a knowing gaze, guarding the secrets of her past, secrets that may never be revealed. Throughout history, humanity has been drawn to tales that blur the boundaries between life and death, reality and imagination. The legend of La Pascualita is no exception. She stands as a silent testament to our fascination with the unexplained, a figure that compels us to confront the mysteries we fear and the truths we may never uncover. What is it about La Pascualita that keeps her story alive? Is it the chilling possibility that she might truly be an embalmed bride, her spirit trapped in a state of eternal vigilance? Or is it the power of human imagination, weaving narratives to make sense of something we cannot fully understand? Perhaps it's both, an intersection of fear, curiosity, and the innate need to connect with the inexplicable. Standing in the shop window, La Pascualita invites us to examine our relationship with mortality. Death is an inevitable part of life, yet it remains one of our greatest mysteries. The idea of preserving life, even in the smallest or strangest ways, touches on a deep-seated desire to resist the finality of the grave. Could the story of La Pascualita be a manifestation of that yearning? A daughter taken too soon, immortalized by her grieving parent. Is it a tale of love defying death, or a tragic refusal to let go? There's also the lingering question of belief. Why do some insist that they've seen La Pascualita move, blink, or smile? Are these witnesses driven by an overactive imagination, or have they genuinely experienced something beyond explanation? It's a question that doesn't have a definitive answer, and perhaps that's what makes the story so compelling. The lack of certainty leaves room for interpretation, allowing each visitor to project their own fears and hopes onto her. In a world increasingly dominated by science and rationality, legends like La Pascualita offer a rare opportunity to embrace the unknown. They remind us that not everything can be explained, that some stories resist closure. This ambiguity is both unsettling and captivating. It's the thrill of the unsolved mystery, the shiver that runs down your spine when you feel eyes watching you in an empty room. It's the voice in the back of your mind that whispers, "What if?" But perhaps the most chilling aspect of La Pascualita's tale is what it reveals about us. Our need to create stories, to seek meaning in the inexplicable, speaks to a deep vulnerability. We fear death, yet we're drawn to it. We crave understanding, yet we're captivated by what lies just out of reach. In La Pascualita, we see a reflection of our own contradictions, our fear of the unknown and our simultaneous desire to explore it. As you consider her story, ask yourself, what do you believe? Is La Pascualita just a mannequin, her lifelike features the result of masterful craftsmanship? Or is she something more, a relic of love and loss, her presence defying the natural order? The answer may never be clear, and perhaps that's the point. In a world obsessed with answers, La Pascualita remains an unsolvable puzzle, a legend that refuses to fade. So, the next time you find yourself near the bridal shop in Chihuahua, take a moment to stand before her. Look into her eyes, study the delicate details of her hands, and feel the weight of her story. Whether you leave as a skeptic or a believer, one thing is certain. La Pascualita will linger in your thoughts, a haunting reminder of the thin line between life and death. As the legend endures, so does the question. What if the truth isn't as far-fetched as it seems? Could there be more to La Pascualita than meets the eye? These are the questions that haunt us, the ones that make the story unforgettable. And perhaps, in the end, that's the true power of La Pascualita, not in her silence, but in the echoes of uncertainty she leaves behind.